Okay, another story about Z93, WZGC, Atlanta. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s. Chase and Woodside doing mornings. Well, the radio station paid no money whatsoever for advertising. No promotion, it was all word of mouth. So as our ratings continued to tumble, only because that consultant, Gary, that you may have heard me talk about in an earlier episode, kept taking away our talking points and adding more damn classic rock and roll music. The same tired ass, burned out records. Well, people wanted to hear us because it was the advent of talk radio. But anyway, we couldn't do that because it was an FM music station. Why would anybody want to bastardize an FM signal by not playing music, right? Anyway, that was the thought back then. It changed, as you are well aware. So I said, well, what can we do to get more listeners, word of mouth, and a lot of talk in the Atlanta market? So I wrote a song, a parody, based on the original song by Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show called On the Cover of the Rolling Stone, and rewrote it to On the Cover of Atlanta magazine. Once it was recorded and put all together, I took a cassette to Norman Shaven, who was the editor of Atlanta magazine back during that time. And I said, here's something we recorded. I think this would be good publicity for you and good publicity for us. And just maybe you will put us on the cover of Atlanta magazine. He just kind of laughed. He said, okay, well, thanks for the cassette. I'll pray about it, think about it, and talk about it. I figured, well, that was a dead end. Nice guy, but it was a dead end. So went back and I said, Chase, we need to take this damn song and burn the living hell out of it on the air. Play it over and over, get listeners to call and request the song, just on and on and on, energy, enthusiasm, excitement. We did until then general manager and then program director Tony Mathis said, guys, you need to quit playing that shit. It's horrible, it's obnoxious, and you're losing listeners. And I thought, well, we're losing them anyway. What the hell, right? Anyway, long story short, it worked. Yes, we got on the cover of Atlanta magazine. Now, at first, actually, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show was playing at a place in Stone Mountain. It was really a famous place back then called the Stone Pony. So I went there. I watched the whole set of the band. At the end of the band, I went up to the guy, and I can't remember his name. And I said, I've got this music I've written, and I want you to look at it and see what you think. And I know you've come out with a new album, and we can play the album if you would just, be so kind as to record this with your band and use these lyrics. And I'm in the tour bus, and we're drinking and smoking dope. And he says, yep, I'm going to do this. I didn't get home till 4 o'clock in the morning. The morning show started at 5:30. I told Chase, this is a home run. Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, man, they're going to record the song. I never heard again from that guy. Never, ever heard from him again. So that's the story. We went in and recorded it. So I hope you enjoy as much as we enjoyed putting it together.
Hey, it's never going to work. We're never going to be able to do it.
Barry, would you just trust me and sing the dadgum song? I can see it now. Atlanta magazine on the cover, best and worst issue. Just sing the song.
Okay.
Tell them who we are, would you?
Well, we're rock and roll DJs who've got all the classic CDs on Z93 radio.
You're doing great. That's us.
We talk about the Falcons, even rode Atlanta too. Every morning on the Fat Mattress Show.
Yeah.
We've even shot the Chattahoochee, had the big chicken grill. But the one thing we've never seen is the thrill that'll get you when you get our picture on the cover of Atlanta magazine. Atlanta magazine.
See our picture on the cover.
Atlanta magazine.
Gonna buy 5 copies for our mamas.
Atlanta magazine.
Gonna see our smiling faces on the cover of Atlanta magazine.
Well, it just might work here.
It's going to work.
I'm feeling better about it.
Keep singing.
There's a brand new look for the Atlanta Zoo. magazine.
Gonna see our picture on the cover.
Atlanta magazine.
Gonna buy 5 copies for our
Atlanta
mamas.
magazine.
Gonna see our smiling faces
On the cover of Atlanta magazine.
Hey, I know!
Z93 Classic Rock and Roll. There's a lot of former teenage blue-eyed groupies that used to do anything we'd say. We got a genuine colorized movie from our buddy Ted Turner today. We've had all the thrills that Atlanta can give, but the thrill we've never seen. Boy, you're gonna be surprised when you feast your eyes on the cover of Atlanta magazine. Atlanta magazine.
Gonna see our picture on the
Atlanta
cover.
magazine.
Gonna buy 5 copies for our
Atlanta
mamas.
magazine.
Gonna see our smiling faces
On the cover of Atlanta magazine. On the cover of Atlanta magazine. Oh man, guys, how'd you feel about that? Whoa.
Really hit it, man.
God, I love that song. It's horrible to the ears, but it took a lot of I wrote the whole thing, put it together. I said, come on, Chase. You got to find us someone that can put a music bed. And back then, in the early 90s, I don't remember the guy that did the recording for us. It was one of Barry's friends, but it was on a basic keyboard. We went over to his house and we sang the damn song over and over. But it worked. Norman Shaven was the editor of Atlanta magazine back in the early 90s. And I actually knew that no one at Atlanta magazine listened to our radio show. So I cold called Atlanta magazine, went up to the suite, asked to speak to Norman, told the gatekeeper who I was. She said, yeah, well, just hold on a minute. He'll come on out. So I said, hey, Norman, we've never met. I'm Scott Woodside from Z93, and I wanted to give you this cassette tape. It's called On the Cover of Atlanta magazine. But before I give it to you, I brought a cassette player so you can actually listen to it. What do you think? He listened to it and he went, whoa, that's compelling. It's different. But you want to be on the cover? I said, yeah, come on, Norman. Well, let me think about it, pray about it, talk to my family about it. So I went, okay, well, it was nice meeting you, whatever you could do. I think it'd be fun for you. A lot of mentions about Atlanta magazine and a lot of mentions about us. So it's a win-win for both sides of the coin, right? Anyway, never heard from him. He never responded again. We just played the living hell out of that song until our GM, David Mazaris, and program director, Tony Mathis, said, you need to cut the shit out and quit playing the song. It's irritating. You're driving listeners away. And I kind of had to agree with him. It pretty much sucked, as you just heard. But guess what? It actually worked. It sure as hell actually worked. And we got a lot of publicity out of it. We got an article in Atlanta magazine on how we did it. I'm sure you could go back in the archives and look it up. But it was all free publicity. And that's the end of that story. God, have I got a bunch of stories for you. I hope to hell they're as interesting to listen to as they are to tell about. Still learning my way through this whole podcasting stuff, but I'm feeling good about it. And if you have any comments, on Anchor or whatever you're listening to, you can actually click a link and send me a voicemail, which would be pretty cool because I can play it back on the air and then respond to it. And yeah, I've got a thick skin. Go ahead, give it to me and listen to it and go from there. Anyway, enough about me. Coming up, I will give you a little bit of information about Washington, D.C., or maybe not. Maybe I'll tell you about Six Flags over Georgia. Oh, God, there's a story. Thanks for listening.